there, all my sexy Dexter fans. Happy 2013, by the way. So this is my very first video of the year. Woohoo! So I thought that I would start things off by finally closing the books on Dexter Season 7 in full. I'm going to give my full season review and discuss my favorite episodes, look at all the different character developments that happened, also look at my favorite seasons in light of Season 7, and discuss some of my predictions for Season 8, even though they're kind of few and far between because I am approaching next season with a very open mind, I suppose. I've kind of taken a little bit of a break from Dexter in the past couple weeks from watching it and vlogging about it just because I've been catching up on other shows, and I don't want to burn myself out on the show that is pretty much my heart song, and so I've just taken a little break, and now I'm coming back to it to look at everything in full now that there's a little bit of distance between myself and the finale, and I'm kind of, looking at the shape of things a little bit more. And so let us break this down. There's going to be lots of spoilers. So if you haven't watched the season yet, if you are somewhere in Europe and it hasn't premiered yet in your country or whatever, I would suggest that you not watch this review. I'm going to tell you that Season 7 is definitely worth the watch, and it is going to take you on a pretty little trip. So grab your passport because you're going to be going places, okay? So I will tell you that much, but for the rest of you, go ahead and come on the journey. For those of you who don't want any spoilers, I would suggest that you reroute your brain and check out a different video for now. So again, I'm going to be looking at everything in full, but if there are any little details that I forget along the way, which there will inevitably be, just please let me know in the comments, and we can all just chat about it and kind of compare our different views of everything that's happened and what's to come. So Dexter, oh my gosh. So let us see here. I made a little list of all different characters, and I'm going to talk about everything that's happened with each and every one of them that I can think of off the top of my head. So here we go. First of all, we are going to talk about our boy Quinn, and I know that some of you are going to groan when I say this, and I understand because the things that happened with his character this season were not as, dynamic as I was hoping, and as some of us were likely hoping. We're kind of expecting bigger things for him, bigger change, and, Quinn basically gets himself involved with a beautiful stripper, dancer, entertainer, woman by the name of Nadia, as, after the shooter of Mike Anderson is tied in with the Koshka Brotherhood, which runs her club, the Foxhole, in Miami. So he gets his pretty little self all his panties in a bunch over there, and it seems that his plotline is largely detached from everyone else, even though Dexter, for much of the season, he is kind of vying constantly with Isaac Sirko. And, Quinn's having issues with George, who, he kind of used to cut him some deals back when he was in narcotics and yada yada. But in general, to me, his plotline seemed a little bit superfluous. It was just kind of like, oh, and now we have to go see what Quinn is doing. His the screen time that he had didn't really warrant a ton of interest for me personally. And I know that a lot of other people kind of felt that way too. And so basically his entire relationship with Nadia just kind of goes out the window, after fit hits the shan, if you know the expression, so after everything goes crazy, like he ends up killing George because he's abusing her and he's using her to try and get to Quinn and, kind of make a little puppet out of him. And so finally Quinn takes care of George and he tells Nadia to get out of there, and he's constantly trying to get her freedom. And then when she has it, she uses that freedom to leave his sorry ass. So bye-bye. So basically he ends up kind of right where he started before. So it just kind of came full circle. And he is showing a certain, his drunkenly interest in Batista's sister, Jamie. So it is assumed that they are starting a relationship by the end of the season, and questions are being raised like whether or not Quinn is going to regain an interest in what's really going on with Dexter now that he is going to be dating her nanny. But they've already been down that road. They kind of already played with that territory in season 5, so I would be surprised if they did that all over again. However, I do have some things to say about the possibility of Batista being the next person in Miami Metro to get on to Dexter, and now Deborah too, who is very much implicated in what Dexter has done this season. So that moves me on to Batista, whom I love so dearly. And by the way, I had heard that before the season aired that somebody was supposed to die of cancer or something like that. So in the future, when I'm making these like season 8 hint vlogs, just take some of the hints with a grain of salt, because obviously that didn't come true. I don't know if that's in the works for season 8, but it's just kind of he said, she said, whatever else. You just never know. So nobody died of cancer that I know of. So Batista has kind of an interesting little journey in this season. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of him, but I think it was interesting how the writers explored Batista exploring his own life outside of being a cop. He's kind of trying to find his own identity in the way that other characters in the show are seeking to do that. And for him, that takes the form of him wanting to own a restaurant and just something that he can enjoy and be passionate about that's not necessarily putting his life on the line. And, I can't blame him. He's had a tough go of things, and, we know Batista, he's kind of the chillax, low-key, fun-loving guy. So, owning a restaurant for him is something that's really fun, and it's something that resonates with him. So, who's to judge? However, I don't think that he is going to stay in retirement for long, especially after he finds out what's happened to LaGuerta. So that is one prediction that I have for season 8. I do believe that he is going to come back out of the woodwork and be like, okay, hold the phone, like what's really going on? And I think that he's going to stay with Miami Metro and just try to pick up the pieces. So he may very well be the next one to suspect Dexter. I don't know. Because, him and Deborah have also had some kind of dicey things going between them in this season. So it's distinctly possible that he's going to be put in a position where he starts putting 2 and 2 together and putting those 2s together with the other 2s and, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll be interesting. But, yeah. And I think that the reason why the writers were kind of playing into him, like being a friend to LaGuerta and those little random scenes of them talking, I think that they're kind of using that to establish a relationship between them that could warrant, Batista being very interested in trying to figure out what really happened to her, and he'll be very devastated as well. So I'm nervous to see what happens for him. Masuka is still around. He is large and in charge. I was actually the other day just thinking up random things that Masuka might say, which speaks to my own perverted mind. If you want to know what those things are, well, send me a message. Maybe I'll tell you. But yeah, so Masuka is still, the comic relief as much as ever. I wanted to see so much more of him in this season, but they only had so much just time to give to him. So I understand, makes you wonder if he might be involved in suspecting Dexter of anything next season, although he did serve a role in helping to clear Dexter when LaGuerta was hot on his heels. So he's kind of seemed like more of a neutral figure in that aspect, just delivering the scientific facts and, that Dexter had planted. So Masuka, he shall return in vivid colors as always. And then we've got Harrison and Harry, Dexter's family, both surviving and deceased, except still living on in his head. I think that Harry's interactions with Dexter this season were very interesting, and just as Harry was sometimes very skeptical of what Dexter was doing this season, I kind of found myself agreeing with him a lot of time and just yeah, Dex, what are you doing? Also very interesting how Harry reacted when Dexter found out Deborah's true feelings for him. Because it could have gone, there's two ways that things could have gone as far as like the post feelings revelation discussion between Dexter and Harry. It could either be that Dexter realizes like, wow, I have some not so brotherly feelings for her as well, and then Harry would show a complete and utter revulsion to that. Or Dexter, as he did, would, show a revulsion to the idea of Deborah having feelings for him, and then Harry calling him out. Because, Harry is kind of his conscience. He speaks from a very true place in Dexter's mind. He helps play a role in Dexter figuring out that the Dark Passenger is not a real thing. He really plays a role in pointing out a lot of the truth that Dexter misses in his initial reactions to things. And so, just kind of interesting food for thought that Harry is very much, as Dexter's conscience, he holds Deborah in a very sacred place for Dexter. So it's really interesting to think about that and to consider that in light of what might happen with our beloved Deb and Dex next season. And little Harrison is still trucking along. He didn't get a ton of screen time this season. You gotta wonder, like, seriously, how much money is Jamie making? Like, I want in on that. Like, I'm just gonna graduate from college and then just nanny forever for Dexter, because the cash that you make during that experience is kind of mind-blowing when you think about how much he's out and about. So that takes me on to Isaac and the Koshkas. And I was really bummed that Isaac had to leave so soon. I think he was such an amazing foil for Dexter this season. Like, gah. And he's friggin' sexy. Like, I'm sorry. I tend to be attracted as far as like celebrities and things go. I tend to like mostly men who are like over 40 years of age, which is like really creepy when I realize it, but it's like Michael C. Hall and Ray Stevenson and Hugh Jackman. I'm just saying Ray Stevenson is a badass. He did amazingly as Isaac, and Isaac really helped to play a huge role in Dexter figuring out his humanity. He challenges Dexter in that, Dexter approaches the idea of loving someone else from a very scientific, cold, calculating, logical position. And Isaac challenges that at every single turn. And, ultimately he and Dexter kind of form an alliance, almost a sort of mentorship, in that Isaac is constantly trying to teach Dexter and blow his old ideas out of the water. And so it was really cool that they had that kind of a relationship, even though they were mostly antagonistic throughout the season. I think that he teaches Dexter an incredible lesson in love, talking about how love is inconvenient and inappropriate, but ultimately when it is true, you will do anything for it. And, a lot of people thought that might be about his relationship with Hannah, but I think that it is truly about his connection with Deborah, because that love there is the most inconvenient and arguably, inappropriate loves of the entire show. And it's just amazing to consider how far they have come, and that's something that I'm still going to get to. So, but Isaac was very, very cool to watch, a very intriguing sort of villain to have on Dexter, and I'm curious to see what kind of big bad they're going to have for next season. From what I've heard, there's not going to be like any one single big bad, and that they're going to be focusing more on Dexter's past and kind of like rehashing out his character, looking into new truths about him that perhaps will change the way that he approaches his bloody lifestyle. So we'll have to see about that. But I miss you, Isaac. I still do. And then we had earlier in the season, if y'all remember, we had Spelter. And honestly, that whole scenario and the episodes that revolved around him was really fun for me to watch. That was actually one of my favorite parts of the season, was the way that like Dexter and Deborah interacted together because of Spelter, and how they interacted with him himself, and then how the kill was such a landmark in Dexter's journey as a killer. Just All those Kodak moments, like, oh, and this was the day I decided, not to use my blood sides anymore. But it was such a crazy moment that nobody could have foreseen coming. All these changes that Dexter's made to the way that he approaches the ritual, and, who exactly is he now? Is he as sympathetic to us as he was at the very beginning? As he's kind of cutting the corners with his code, and he's operating without a dark passenger. He owns his needs. They come from within him, and like he says in the finale, he's just a creep motherfucker. So that's what he's starting to believe and see now, is that it's all him, and that he is not in fact a neat monster, but a very messy person. So, and in Spelter, that kill sort of symbolized how Dexter's realizing, just as Jamie was talking about how Harrison is growing up and learning to become part of a group, Dexter realizes that he has grown and is learning to integrate into society more successfully than he ever thought, to the point that it actually even matters to him now, which is really crazy to consider. And so when he gets rid of his blood slides, it's like, getting rid of Harrison's old toys. They're just playthings in light of the fact that, he's becoming more human. And he's kind of minimalizing those things that used to set him apart and define him and the way he lives. And, he's seeking to kind of be more one of us. What if Dex was one of us? He sort of is, but anyway, moving on. Then we have Wayne Randall and Hannah McKay. So much to be said for them. I'm already so far into this vlog. Oh my gosh, I apologize. But yeah, so Wayne Randall was very interesting. We had a very short-lived appearance in Sunshine and Frosty Swirl, the second episode. But the kind of running impact that he left was sort of talking about, how Hannah was like the Robin to his Batman, that kind of thing. And we were all trying to figure out if that was supposed to be symbolic of Hannah and Dexter, or Deborah and Dexter. And, it could go, either way. Honestly, I could talk about it for days and days, and write a couple books, and publish an encyclopedia collection on it. I'll keep you posted. Yeah, so he kind of, plants the seed of Dexter's journey in his life of love. And Hannah, of course, is a very intriguing figure, and I was quite irked by her at times. For me personally, I don't like the way that the writers tried to get us to fall for her instantly, and it was just really weird how she was injected so quickly and suddenly into the plot line. And then, it's interesting because we all thought that Deb was the one who poisoned herself, but it was in fact Hannah who pulled that move at the very end and kind of ended in this sort of Lila-like way, telling Dexter that they could have had it all. And there was, I believe it was the 10th episode, because that was the one where her father kind of reemerged from the woodwork, and we really see some of the forces that shaped Hannah as well, and what has broken her and kind of fed into her desire to survive ultimately. How that has become the foremost thing of her existence is fighting to survive. And so when she poisons Deborah, basically for her, it's a move of survival. Survival for her and Dexter, because she sees them as necessary. She has this dream of Argentina that she is so clinging to, and it has become the thing that, that is keeping her surviving. And so, is she going to return next season? I have no idea. I honestly think that she will. It's kind of up to whether or not Yvonne Strahovski, the actress playing her, if she's going to be able to return. I imagine that she's going to, though. I mean, if you land a role on Dexter, that's probably something that you should milk for what it's worth while you still can. So, yeah, so I think that she's probably going to return and be sort of a thorn in Dexter and Deborah's side. I I don't think that her and Dexter are going to get back together. I'm not really sure if she's going to be a part of the end game at all. It would be very strange if she was, because it sounds like the writers have had an idea of how they want to end the show for a while, and so I'm not sure. They might just bring her back towards the beginning to kind of resolve things with her character that have been left open. But yeah, I guess we'll see. But ultimately, Dexter made it clear that he can't trust her. Whether or not she would ever cross him in the way of hurting Deborah again, whether or not she'd even do that, it's not necessarily even an issue, because Dexter now knows that he can't trust her. He still has feelings for her, but without trust, they are going to burn out in the most vivid colors, and it's going to be nothing but an ugly and likely bloody mess. So I don't know. I think that they should bring her character back next season, but just to resolve that relationship. Because, just seeing Dexter getting constantly entangled by her, I just feel like there are so many other things that really need to be hashed out next season, in that Dexter and Deborah need to be in the forefront of things. And that's not just because I am very biased in my idea of what kind of relationship I want Dexter to have. I've been clear about that, but it's just, they have carried this show on their backs like a freaking cross, Dexter and Deborah together. And so if Hannah comes back, I just don't want her plotline to completely overshadow that, because that now is going to be a very 10 times more interesting than, their relationship is going to be 10 times more interesting to explore in the next season, even more interesting than it became at the end of season 6. So craziness. Then there's LaGuerta and Matthews, and we have to ask, what is Matthews going to do now that LaGuerta's gone? They were kind of acting as sort of nemesis a lot of the time, even though LaGuerta was trying to get his support. He's constantly just sort of backhanding her, and in many ways, I think that his presence kind of all the things that he said throughout the season kind of had a sort of Masuka-ish vibe. Him and Masuka were tag teaming the sort of humor, comic relief side of things. Oh my gosh, I was like, amen, amen. Every time he opened his mouth to LaGuerta, pretty much. But then that leads us to the fact that LaGuerta is gone, and I don't think that the reality is fully sunk in yet. Who's going to be the new bad bee now? It's who's going to be screwing up everyone's lives? Gosh dang it, you need someone to do that. Duh. So it's definitely, there's going to be a big gap left in her absence. And I cried so hard at her loss, particularly because of the way in which Deborah reacted to it. Deborah she's not really had a lot of female figures in her life. Her mother died when she was much younger of cancer. And so in many ways, LaGuerta was the closest thing that she's had to any kind of a mother figure, which is really weird when you think about it, but it's true. And so the way that Deborah runs after her and is cradling her dead body in her arms at the end is just, oh, God, just the resolve it took in just that split second to commit to ending the life of a person who has impacted you so much, for better and for worse. I mean, oh my God, just Deb, my darling, I just want to take you home, and I will make you Thai food, and we will eat ice cream and cry, and that leads me to Deborah and Dexter. Their characters in general have undergone enormous changes this season. Deborah is almost completely unrecognizable from her season 1 self. Rewatching that stuff is so painful because I feel so much for the ways in which she has been broken, and I relate to her on an enormous level in just so many ways. Oh my God. and the way that she's constantly sacrificed for Dexter, and she has never wavered in that. She has definitely differed in her approach. You know, she starts off the season wanting to keep Dexter with her at all times, you know, make sure that there's not even time for Dexter to do anything, to the point of wanting to distance herself from the very reality of who he is. And I think in that she allows herself to re-experience romantic feelings for him, in almost kind of forgetting the things that he does, and seeing those good sides of him and those constancies that she's clung to all along. Like in Swim Deep, I loved the way that their relationship was highlighted and really explored, and we see her feeling nostalgic about their past. And then, you know, it all reaches a huge fever pitch in Argentina, which, if that doesn't land her an Emmy, in the words of Yvonne Strahovski, I will start a riot and eat my own underwear on fire. So I'm just saying, I don't think anyone wants to see that. Do you? I don't. So that's all I'm saying. Jennifer Carpenter is beastly, okay? And Dexter, you know, I found myself very frustrated with him a lot of this season, because of the way that he was just kind of wooed off into La La Land with Hannah McKay. But in many ways, their relationship was very interesting and left a huge impact on Dexter's understanding of his humanity. Because through her, he really learns to take responsibility. He goes from having this dark passenger to realizing that he's been driving the whole time, you know? And I think that Hannah was a huge part of that. But I am most interested to see, you know, where Dexter and Deborah's relationship is going to go from here. Are they going to flourish or fail? And I feel that in many ways, in the end, it's going to come down to just Dexter and Deborah. They have been in this for so long, and it makes me think of that season 1 quote, you know, and Deborah's like, if somebody's gonna break through your fucking walls, like if you're gonna have stakes with someone after a rough day, like it's gonna be her. And now that she has committed an act of murder for Dexter, you know, talk about codes rewritten for them both. And I think that in many ways, they're both born in blood through this. So they have so many places to go, and I really hope that that is the main platform that's really focused on next season. And just excited to see where things go. And it's weird to see a more human Dexter, because as he's more human, we see him more as like kind of a normal serial killer. And it's weird, and yet we see the ways in which he expresses himself emotionally, and, you know, he's kind of almost over that, you know, maybe a monster is all I am sort of mentality. He's realizing his own power, which is kind of crazy. And so, now that this vlog is like a gajillion hours long, I am going to very quickly do a little episode ranking and season ranking. So my top favorite episode of this season was definitely the finale. Surprise, motherfucker. I mean, y'all know why. My man Dokes, again, I was really ecstatic about the ways in which they used him and how they used, you know, the return of Dokes to kind of show us, you know, where things went wrong for Dexter. Wrong, and that he revealed himself in a way that he had never intended to, thinking he was doing the exact opposite. So again, just absolutely phenomenal, gut-wrenching, cliffhanger-ing, everything. So finale was great. And then I loved Argentina, just because of all the emotional developments and the sheer acting forces that were employed there. And then Swim Deep was fabulous, because for my little Dexter Deborah heart, it was so great to just watch them being more vulnerable with each other and committed to one another. And so many moments that I love. I loved like the dream sequence that Deborah had and she fell asleep in the bathtub, that just the sheer artistry of that, and oh man, everything. So, and then as far as season rankings go, favorites to least favorites, seasons 1 4, 7, 2, 6, 3, and 5. So 7 is kind of at a number 3 right now, and it's sort of, with season 7 and 2, they sort of waver back and forth, like depending on like what kinds of aspects I'm focusing on. I wouldn't say that it is my favorite because of just the way that the Hannah plotline kind of like sliced into everything all of a sudden, and there was this sort of build-up that I personally felt was interrupted. But yeah, so it's definitely up there on my list of favorites because of the ways in which it challenges us as an audience, and a lot of the times it's uncomfortable and hard to watch, and yet it's a good thing. It's a good thing for us and a growing experience. And, you know, bottom line of this season, you know, is what are the consequences of love? And we're still left with that question. The season answered it, as well as like raised even more questions about it, if that makes any kind of sense at all. So I'm going to be keeping you guys in the know about everything that's coming with season 8, and it's been amazing having all of your support through all these vlogs. Coming up, I have I'm going to start reviewing Breaking Bad and The Walking Dead, so hold on to your panties, ladies and gentlemen, and if you don't wear them, then hold on to whatever it is that you are wearing, and if you don't wear clothes, then congratulations. But thank you for watching the entirety of this review, and share it if you know other people who love Dexter. Like and favorite and do stuff with this video. I'll trust you with that. But thanks so much for watching and listening, and more Dexter stuff to come. So leave your thoughts in the comments, and I will be back in a jiff. Ciao, my lovelies.